Hey everyone, welcome to Legends and More, the podcast. I'm your host, Luke Legend. Today I have an icon, a very attractive, amazing performer I have with me in the studio today, Sean Harding. Sean, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Sean, I do have some viewers that are not really big into the adult entertainment world. Tell me some more about your background and what you've done in the adult entertainment industry.
I've done a little bit of everything. I've done like studio work, kind of OnlyFans stuff. I guess you can say companion work. Done some like political activism. A little bit of everything in the business. I don't know if you think of anything else, but yeah, I'm kind of a multi-talented, or not talented, but multi-faceted worker in the industry, I guess.
Companion work, I like that. That's a good it's a good way. One of my friends who does it calls it, they say that they're a short-term relationship consultant. And so that's how they refer to it. How did you get into the adult entertainment industry?
It was maybe like two different leaps into it. At first, I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and I moved to Atlanta. Like, do you remember that big snowstorm in like 2012 or like it shut down the whole
Yeah.
city? I had just moved over there to start a job and my car ran out of gas. Anyway, long story short, I was fired from that job I just moved from because I couldn't make it to work because I didn't have a car. So I kind of looked into like companion work for just kind of a short term thing. And I did that and I realized I just was making like a shit ton of money and like looked at my like office job and was just like it takes me 40 hours to make what I make in like 1 hour doing this. And it was kind of hard to kind of keep that motivation of going to work at like, 9 to 5 every day. And then I finally just kind of like gave up on that and moved to Chicago for like a self rediscovery. And what got me into porn was there was this very small group, I think this was like 2015 or 16. And you wouldn't even like imagine it existed, but it was maybe about 800 people. It's called Breed and Butter. And everyone just like posted their homemade sex videos on Facebook in this private group. There was like no like
Do you have
monitoring.
anything to do with food?
No, no, it was all just like it was OnlyFans before OnlyFans existed, and it was free, but like
Okay.
you had to. But anyways, that was such like a confidence booster for me because like I grew up in the South and like was really repressed, and just kind of for the first time putting my like sexuality on video for like people to look at and judge was like kind of a big deal for me. Now it's like everyday thing, but that kind of was a spark that made me more a little bit more exhibitionist and it eventually kind of led to like studio work, and then I think 2 years later I started doing OnlyFans work. But that was kind of the if Breed and Better, that group, didn't exist on Facebook, I would probably not be in porn, or I'd probably be in an office somewhere right now. But it was kind of like
Nice.
that
So
group
with your
doesn't exist anymore though.
well, that's unfortunate because I just wrote it down and I was going to go look for it, but now I
Yeah.
can't. Thanks for that. At least you saved me some time. So with your companionship, so people can pay for your time, right? I'm always curious
Donate
when it
money.
comes to, yeah, or whatever. I'm always curious what your very first experience. Were you super nervous, or what was going through your head?
Yeah, my very first person was he was actually pretty cool. Like I don't really remember too many of the details, but yeah, I was super duper nervous. Um, but it only lasted like 20 minutes, and I was kind of like, that's it. This second person I ever had was a little different. It was a hotel room. He didn't give me much details about what was going on, so I just showed up, and there was this guy and like a diaper, fully soiled diaper, laying on the bed, and was like,
Oh,
I need changed, and like I know nothing about that, and I felt like something that she kind of let someone know, but I was just kind
yeah,
of like, I don't like this isn't like I'm not gonna have a good time with this, so you're not gonna have a good time. And then he like barricaded himself in front of the door. I don't know if it was out of like embarrassment or, but he like would not let me leave. And like I was just like, I don't know why you want me here if I don't want to be here.
yeah,
But
that's
eventually I
cringe.
just had to kind of be like, you know what, like like I'll try, I'll won't knock it till I try it. And I was like, go lay on the bed. And he was like, okay. And then like as soon as he left, I just like went out the
Okay,
door.
good. Nice bait and switch. Okay, that's pretty cool. No,
So
that works. What's the weirdest thing you've ever been asked to do?
weirdest thing. Let's go back to that one. I'll have to think on it.
Okay, no, that's totally fine. I just always I'm a person that I like some fun things in the bedroom, but I've never personally understood like the diaper thing or bodily fluids like feces and stuff. So I'm always curious to hear like what all are the things out there that people are into.
There's like I remember during the pandemic was a weird time because I was doing a lot of kind of FaceTime stuff with people and like
Oh,
camming, so
yeah.
it wasn't very one on one, but like there was people who wanted me to like blow up balloons and just have balloons on my bed and like roll around my bed naked and like pop them on me, and that was like it. There was like a guy who had me go to like the grocery store and get a frozen pie and defrost it overnight. And I just stood in my shower and just kind of threw a pie in my face and just kind of stood there. Um, and
What do
even
you
like,
think the sexual part of that is for them? Is it like the degradation part? Does it have to do with the food? Like what? I'm not judging. I'm just genuinely
like
curious.
there's some things like I try to understand, even if I'm not into it, I try to understand like people's fetishes just because it interests me. But some people do not have an explanation for it. But I have like kind of looked into like non-sexual things being sexual, like for example, like feet. Like feet fetish is a huge fetish, but like there's nothing
Yeah.
innately sexual about feet. But
No.
what I've kind of learned from like studies and stuff is that there's like parts of your brain that can get crossed that are involved in like arousal, and those can get crossed with in development of things like your the system that moves your feet and something like that, and it makes like a sexual connection with it,
Hmm.
even if there's not. With the balloon thing, people like get off to like the thrill of like the pop, and maybe, and it also kind of stems from childhood, but like kind of that excitement of the pop kind of gets people going and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember when I was 19, I had a guy message me on Facebook and he said, "Hey, I will pay you $75 an hour to come to my hotel room and pop balloons with your bare hands and break pencils with your bare hands." And I was 19 and I was very like holier than thou back then. So I was like, oh my God, no. But looking back, I was like, that would have been the easiest money ever for me. I am so stupid. Like $75? Maybe. And he was like, you can keep your clothes on. And I was like, why was I so stupid? Like,
Yeah, when I first started out in Atlanta, there was this guy. I never saw him. I don't even know what he looks like, but he would like run a warm bath, and I would come over and I would like poop in it, and
really?
I would get out, put on my clothes, and leave. I wouldn't see him, and then like whatever he did after that was like what he did, but
How much does typically someone pay for that kind of service?
like $300.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very strange.
And then on the that's not so strange, but is strange. Like 2 nights ago, I had a guy that just wanted me to get on FaceTime and like sag my pants so my underwear like showed, but I didn't take it was like jeans underwear, but like like sagging, and I just stood there for 15 minutes like doing nothing, and he just wanted to see my butt and underwear like with jean up.
Huh.
It's like you just think you could go online and Google a picture, but like,
I
yeah.
think my problem that I have with hearing all of the stories from you and other people is how much disposable income people have because I wish I had the kind of money where I could be like, let me pay you to just stand there and show me your butt. But
I
I'm
mean,
like, I don't.
you have no clue. There was this guy in St. Petersburg. Like, I don't really probe into people's lives, but he like picked me up in this Rolls Royce, and I was just like, "Wow, I've never been in a Rolls Royce before." And then he's like we're gonna go change out cars." So like, no joke, he pulls up to this huge warehouse, and there's over like 150, like probably over like $250 million worth of cars in there, just like.
What?
Like literally the most insane car collection I've ever seen. And he just like drives me around to like all his houses in the area. He has this like $500,000 Swarovski crystal Disney castle that's had like a painter's uh like sheet over it, and it just in his basement. And I'm like, you have like a $500,000 castle sitting in your basement, like that would change my life to have.
I mean, a quarter of that would change my life for
And the whole
sure.
thing, like, he flew me down from Chicago to St. Petersburg for 2 days. I got there on a Friday, left on Sunday. And the only reason he wanted me to come down because his husband had been like seeing this younger guy. They're like open, but he just wanted me to make him jealous. And so I went over to their house for like an hour to watch a movie, and like kind of like
Mm.
we cuddled. We didn't do anything other than that. He dropped me off at the hotel, and he's like, "Here's like some money, and you have 2 days to do whatever you want, and just like if you need something, let me know." That was it. And
Have you
it
ever
was
had like a
he paid me
rich
$4,000
person
just to fly me down there. This.
that just for an hour?
Yeah, no, I was down there for like 3 days, but just for that one, he wanted to make his husband
Gotcha.
jealous, and I'm like, he couldn't have found anyone in Florida. Disposable income is crazy.
That is crazy. Have you ever had somebody that's super rich that was just like, Sean, quit your job, fly away with me, let's live our lives together and I'll pay for everything?
Oh yeah, I've had like people. It's like I have a spare house, and like you can just live in the house, and you won't have anything to worry about. But like, as good as that sounds, like I've been in relationships where like my partner, he had a very high profile job, and I didn't have to work. But like there comes an amount of control in situations like that. When someone has control over all the money, they also have control over you. And so like
That makes
as
sense.
fun as it sounds to live in someone's house, like I could never do that or be like a kept boy. Like I'm like toxically independent. So
Well, that's understandable. What's the most common thing that people ask from you for your sessions? What's the most common request you get?
it's actually pretty boring. It's just people like a just like a regular time. As boring as weird as that sounds, like they don't want like this big theatrical like experience. It's
It's
just
not
kind of like the
predominantly
boy
kink.
next door experience. Yeah, there's nothing kinky. It's just kind of like a cuddle kiss. Like people are really into like kissing and affection and like stuff like that.
Do you ever have clients where you're like genuinely attracted to them, where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're paying me?
Like all like I would say 80% of them, like that's maybe the biggest misconception.
Really?
Like clients are like gross or old or like unattractive. Like I even like show my therapist sometimes like pictures if someone sends me. I'm just like I would like I would do this guy if he was on if just messaged me on Grinder, he wouldn't have to pay anything. But yeah, all the time.
And do you like keep that as separate as possible? Like, have you ever messaged a guy afterward and been like, I really liked you, we should hang out sometime, kind of thing? Or do you keep that separate?
Yeah, like that's I don't get that involved in it. People have their own lives, and I understand that it is what it is. As much
Gotcha.
as
That
sometimes
makes
I
sense.
want to, I'm just like,
Is that kind of work, and the type of work that you do, is that tough navigating your own personal relationships with that kind of work?
yeah, like my last relationship was with a sex worker, and it was a really good relationship. I don't think I could ever be in a relationship with a sex worker again, just because it's like a lot of sex. And I think people think that I'm this like really super hypersexual person that just wants to have sex every day all the time, and like I'm not that person. I'm in my personal life, I might have sex like once or twice a month. Maybe the most difficult part is like meeting people. Like the most dreaded question I get, and it's always the second question, what do you do? That's how people kind
Right.
of size you up, how much respect they want to give you, or how much they want. They see themselves over you, and so that's like always been a difficult question. Even though I'm not like ashamed of it at all, it's just kind of awkward to like
Sure.
to vocalize because it always leads to a frame of mind um, where you become this object and not a person.
I find that really interesting that you said that about people sizing you up. I guess for me, when I ask people what they do, it's more of like a just trying to make conversation to find common ground. Like, Oh, you work on television shows? I love television shows, kind of thing. Like, I guess I've never judged somebody for what they do, but I don't know if that's the norm or not. Do you get a lot of judgment when you tell people that you're a sex worker?
It's never like a place from judgment. I don't think anyone's like, ew. Um, I do get a lot of how people kind of like project what they think that is onto me, that they can maybe like kind of touch me inappropriately, or that it
Hmm.
changes how people like treat me. And that's not a bad thing, but you say that, and like I said, you become more of a like an object more than a person, because the questions start coming like, well, who is your favorite, like, biggest dick you've taken, like, how many scenes have you, like, just stuff you wouldn't ask a normal person,
Sure, sure.
like, how many dicks did you take this afternoon, like, you don't say that to people, but like when
Yeah.
you say that, it becomes okay to ask me, which, like, sometimes I don't mind, but like, when the conversation's always sex, that's, I can get burnt out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's horrible. So, how many dicks have you taken? No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally messing with you. I'm just kidding. No, what would you say is the the percentage of people that hire you for your services? What would you say is the percentage of people that have like prominent positions of power or authority? Like, what percentage would you say?
I would say it's maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 10%. I've
Okay.
definitely had some like celebrities and athletes and politicians. Uh,
Do they
so
make you
it's
sign NDAs?
NDAs don't really. If it discloses an illegal activity, then it's not valid. So if
Oh, I didn't know that, to be honest.
yeah, if NDA is hiding anything that's deemed illegal by the federal government, like, it doesn't matter. So, like, I mean, yeah, you can sign them,
Oh,
but like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I think that's why I
okay.
like Diddy right now. Like, all the people, they signed NDAs, but they were covering up, people being drugged and sexual abuse.
Crime. Yeah.
So that the
I've
evidence can be
never
used in
thought about
court,
that.
even though they
I've
signed
never thought
NDAs.
about that. That's pretty crazy. So you said you have been hired by like professional athletes. Well, like,
Actor,
what would
yeah,
you say
just
is the percentage of guys that identify as straight that have hired you?
it's the only people sometimes like say they're straight because they want, it's a role play thing. And when you get there and it's like, you're
Sure.
obviously not straight. But
Right.
there's definitely, I can tell when people have like a wedding ring. Sometimes even they used to be able to put your phone number like in Facebook, and it would just pull up your Facebook account, and I could see who I was
Oh
meeting.
yeah.
And so it was always kind of funny when I would see someone and it's like their wife and kids in the picture. But yeah, I
Right.
mean, there's a good sizable number of like, you know, married guys. I wouldn't really consider them straight, but they're married with kids with a wife. Just
Sure.
kind of,
When
they're kind
you No,
just
go
talking to
ahead.
those people, they always just kind of seem stuck in the situation. A lot of them
Hmm.
tend to get out once like the kids move out, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no, I always find it so awkward and weird. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday that we were debating the ethical morality of knowingly sleeping with somebody that was married. And I guess, my stance has always been if you know that you're committing a crime, then you're culpable for that crime. If you don't know you're committing a crime, then you're not morally culpable for committing that crime. Does that make sense? I don't know. How do you feel about
Yeah.
that?
I mean, if you want to like put cheating up there with, as like, I know it's not a real crime, but if you want to like make cheating a crime,
Right. No, no,
as
no.
someone who's like that, I guess, gets paid to cheat on people, that like, I really wish people didn't put like sex and cheating and stuff as like 60% of their relationship, because
Mm,
like everyone who I know is like cheating on someone who has a husband, a wife, or boyfriend or whatever, like, they're not I'm not there because they don't love their wife or their husband or their partner. I'm not there because they're mad at them. I'm not, it has nothing to do with their partner. And cheating is something that I wish a lot of people would remove themselves like as the cause from, because it's really not about them. It's people, you cannot ever sexually satisfy someone 100%. And like
Oh,
even in
for
my
sure.
relationships, like that's why they're open, because I could never satisfy someone, to the full to open, understand that. And to think you can sexually satisfy someone for the rest of their life, only you, like all like it's impossible to do that. And so I think, like maybe sleeping with someone all the time is maybe like a little sketchy, but like open it up every now and then, like I don't feel bad about it. People they have needs. And
Yeah,
at
I
the end
think
of
it's
the
more
day, that's
about the
all it is.
lying. Yeah, I think it's more about the lying aspect for me because I'm so I don't know I'm disheartened that our society is still has so many puritanical what is the word Puritan
Yeah.
the Puritan like esque things that are surrounding sex because the lies like what I said to the person is if you're not getting what you want sexually, why stay? And that person argued, well, there's other aspects. There's the family and children, and they've built a life financially together. And sure, that makes sense. But then why not just say, hey, I still want all these things. I love you and I still want this life, but I would like to have sex with other people. And I guess for me, that seems so basic as a gay man to say, hey, I would really like to have sex with somebody else. But I guess for a lot of straight people in straight society, that's still such a hard concept to wrap their heads around. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, no, I mean, like from the day you're born, it's drilled in your head that like sex is inherently a bad thing, which it's not.
It's
And
not.
so I think a lot of people when cheating gets brought up, that negative connotation gets surrounded in that. And I think those little connotations about sex and sexuality kind of add on to like the badness of it, even though it's not bad at the like end of the day. Like you had sex with someone else, like there that can be bad and good. And if it's an underage person, it's bad. But it's I just wish people would kind of maybe let it be 25% of their relationship and nothing more than that. Because I mean, I have people all
Sure.
the time. It's like I've been married for 40 years. Me and my partner just don't have sex anymore. We're not into each other like that, but we still love each other. They do everything else together, but like sex. So every
Right.
person's different. Every relationship is different. So you just got to find what works for you.
So speaking of, companionship, there's a lot of laws surrounding that, right? And so my question for you is I'm wanting to know there are quite a few companionship type workers that think that they don't want it legalized for a lot of reasons for regulation or taxes or all kinds of things. What are your personal thoughts on legalizing paid companionship?
There's pros and cons. I can remember an incident that happened in February. I went over to someone's house, and I mentioned twice before, like I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I don't do anything with clients. I have like a one drink, but I make that very explicit. Like I don't want any substances. Like if you do substance use, that's fine. But this guy shoved like a big rock of meth up my butt without my
Oh
knowledge,
God.
my consent. And so I made a police report. It was considered a rape. And so I got a detective involved, but then the questioning became, instead of like, what happened to you? Like, are you okay? It became, so like, why were you there? Like, so, oh, he met you from this website. So were you there like escorting, or is like, if a crime occurs while you're a sex worker, the police will look at you like you're a criminal.
Right.
And so it's really hard that if something happens to you, go to the police and get help for it. And
Yeah.
that is a big pro for me, that I would see legalization, because you could get police protection from it. Someone did something to you, you can call the police and not feel like guilty or ashamed about like just expressing your concerns. So I ended up having to drop that case because it felt like I was going to get in trouble too, which is kind of
Yeah.
sad that like someone like raped me and I just had to be like, "Hmm."
That's
But
horrible.
the con, I if a government gathers a list on people, it's never a good thing. So I feel like that registry could be taken advantage of.
What are some of your worries about how that would be taken advantage of?
In the world of like powerful people, just knowing that you're on kind of a list like that, I think it could be exploited, use it against you. I don't know, just I wouldn't want to be on like a occupational list for like government reasons or anything like that. It's maybe
Got
a
it.
personal preference or little anxiety, but just, I don't know. I don't see as it being a good thing.
Yeah. I always struggle with it because it, I feel like the foundation for it being illegal is so dumb. I just think it's absolutely dumb that it's illegal, and I think it fuels that stigma that sex is bad and all these things. I've personally have always wanted to hire a companion because I think that that would be fun, and um I have issues of anxiety and talking to people in public. So how great would it be to pay some money and just bypass all that and be like, get what I wanted, right? But
I
I
mean,
always
like
have
even
this horrible, I just have a horrible anxiety that I would, let's say, contact you and be like, hey, I'd love to hire you, blah, blah. And then I show up and there's like police waiting in the next room over to arrest me. Like, that's always been my fear that I'm going to try it and I'm going to get in so much trouble for something that's so stupid.
yeah, I mean, at the like very core of it, it's really, really stupid. Because you could say, "Hey, Sean, I want you to come to my hotel room. I'm going to give you $300, and we're going to record me having sex with you, and we're going to call it porn." Like that's 100% like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you said, "Hey, Sean, I want to have you to my hotel room. I want to pay you $300, and we're going to have sex," that's illegal. But
Right.
it's just because I didn't. No one recorded it and made a product of it that you can tax, and that basically like where we're at with sex laws in America. It's pretty dumb.
It's so strange. It's strange to me. And I was telling somebody yesterday, I'm seeing more and more smaller things on the internet, like straight people having more open conversations about like open relationships and polyamory and thruples and those things like that. And I do think that it is on a way towards being healthy and open and less shrouded in religious trauma and all kinds of things. But I mean, there's still such a ways to go. Do you think that there are other factors besides religion that surround the stigma of sex work and sex in America, or do you think it's just solely religion?
No, I don't even think religion drives a lot of it now because I like I might make a very valid point of something not sexually related, like a comment on a political post, and it's always like you're a slut. No one cares what you think. Like I'm always invalidated because of like I do sex work, and I think a lot of it stems from like insecurity and jealousy about it. Like when you're taught to be ashamed of something your entire life and you see someone not being ashamed of that one thing that you were told and like told over and over again to be ashamed of, like, and they're enjoying themselves and not having any shame, like I think that like triggers a lot of like resentment and like hatred and jealousy in people that like
Especially when the
they
argument
can't find
has
that openness
nothing to
within
do with it.
themselves. Because once
Yeah,
you're like
especially when
sexually liberated, like it's there's no really going back, but it's hard to get to that point.
yeah. And especially when the argument has nothing to do with it. Because I've commented on posts or discussions or debates, especially about political stuff. And the response that I'll get sometime is, well, nobody cares what you think. You're an unsuccessful comedian that's never made it. Okay, very true. I am an unsuccessful comedian that's never made it. You're stating facts. What does that have to do with an argument about abortion? This
Yeah.
is like, what does that have to do with my argument? Like, it doesn't change that I know what I'm talking about. I think it's weird that people bring up professions and arguments when it has nothing to do with the argument itself.
No, like I actually struggle with that a lot because I do get political on my Twitter a lot, and I do feel like I make some very valid points. So one day I just created this fake profile and I used like this AI generated photo of this like white dude that looks like he's in the military. I don't have backstories. It was just literally the same tweets and my same thoughts that I would post on anything. But like under this straight white guy, like everything I said like was never like rebutted with some kind of uh it was like wildly accepted and retweeted, and like I got like 25,000 followers on that account, and it's like it's me, but like it's not me, and it's so weird that the messenger of the message like
changes
changes
the
how people
message.
interpret it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And like that's one thing that
absolutely.
always kind of like pissed me off is like, like all these points I can make is if someone else is saying them, they're good, but if I say them, they're bad. And it's, it is what it is. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So with people, let's say people like me that have a an anxiety around hiring somebody who is like a professional companion, what do you think are the safest ways to go about finding and hiring somebody that is reputable?
there's websites like Rentman. There might be some others. Just look if they have an online presence because usually there's more than one. They might have like an ad on a website, and 9 times out of 10, they're also going to have a like Twitter account or Instagram or some other social media site. So if you kind of look at those two things, you can even message them, off the site on Twitter, Instagram, and just kind of feel for the safety because like the person is also gonna like I get that anxiety too, like is the cop someone trying to like entrap me in something. So that conversation can be had. It doesn't necessarily mean either side's going to be true about it, but just if you see someone who's like a little bit established, then that's a good sign that you're not being set up for something.
What are some of your personal like hard limits with escorting? Are there certain things that people have messaged you, been like, "Hey, do you do this?" Where you're like, "Absolutely not."
Um, Probably the one thing that's just always an automatic no is just like you party and play, stuff like that. It's just
Um,
always no. That's like
and
I
for my
don't.
straight listeners, what does that mean, Sean?
That is like do meth and have sex, or
Yeah.
drugs and have sex.
What's weird is I've never been under the influence of something. I mean, I don't do a lot of things, but the few times that I've tried stuff or been under the influence of stuff, I don't find myself very capable of having sex. So I don't understand the people that are all about that. I mean, I've never personally done meth, so I don't know what meth does to you or your body, but I've always been like I find sex so much better when I'm not under the influence of like alcohol or marijuana or something like that.
Yeah, like the drugs, it becomes like it's usually not really even about sex. It's about like having people around and the thought of it. Like I have gone to some clients who are using drugs. I'll just sit there for an hour while they're on their phone and won't do anything. And then like once that hour's up, I'm like, I gotta go. And like that's all it turns out to be is just they were sitting on their phone. Like people's minds just kind of go elsewhere on that, and it's
Huh.
I don't know. It's uncomfortable for me as easy as it is. Like
Yeah, that's very
I
interesting.
like people to be lucid and not out of their minds on drugs. So.
So you were actually the I don't know what word I want to use. You were the star of a very infamous meme involving pizza that
Yeah,
I really enjoy.
I don't know if it's famous,
Um
but,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
it was
there's a
famous
big.
to me. Like all the gay groups I follow on Facebook were all posting that like for a year at least. How did that picture of you eating pizza during the act come about?
It was actually like this GIF from like a long time ago. I think I saw on Tumblr. That was a MAL, yeah, MAL in DC, and it was like this in a room with like 5 or 6 guys, and they had like this box of like 7-Eleven pizza, and I was like, I've always that's like one of my favorite gifts. I've always wanted to like recreate it, but like actually like have some hardcore action in there, and so we just picked it up
Uh,
and recorded it. It was
that's
kind of
so
a spur of the
funny.
moment thing.
Yeah. So, are you allowed, you don't have to tell me like any names or any specific details, but have you been hired by somebody that you would consider to be an A-list celebrity?
uh, yeah.
And was that shocking to you?
I'm trying to think of if I could drop a hint on that. The I will say it was a man and his wife sat in a
Like the
chair.
wife was there too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Um, and so the wife kind of wears the pants in that relationship. Um,
Oh. Okay, tell me this much. Television, movies, music,
Movies, movies.
movies.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. And
But
what
yeah,
was
it's
that?
it's it's shocking. Like it's always shocking when you see someone like famous or not, and you get them behind closed doors when when there's nothing around and they can kind of be themselves. It's always a little Dr.
Huh?
Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because this
Interesting.
particular couple are just, they're very like sweet and nice in public, but like behind those doors it was kind of like, yeah, take that. And it
So
was
I have to
really
ask,
raunchy.
was he the bottom?
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, that's so interesting. And do you ever get like performance anxiety personally with like a big client or just in general?
Probably the only thing is when someone tells me to like come, or like they really want to like see,
Oh,
when they vocalize it, it becomes kind of like a conscious thing, and like I usually can never do it after that. It might just be me, but like if you're like, I
got
can't
it.
wait to see you shoot that, like likely that's gonna make me like unable to, just because I have to think about it.
I've just always thought about like being with a celebrity because I do get like performance anxiety, especially if a guy is like really, really, really hot and I believe they're out of my league. It's really hard for me to like become physically aroused. And so I'm always worried that my chance is going to come one day where, because I'm delusional, where a celebrity is going to be like, yeah, let's hook up. And I'm just like, I can't. It's dead, dead down there. I don't know if I can.
No, I mean, like after I've been doing this for 8 or 9 years, I kind of was like that at first, but after seeing so many different people with so many different backgrounds and situations and income levels, like everyone kind of is just a person at the end of the day. Like, you might think if you landed Chris Hemsworth that it might be this bit, but it's just going to be Chris Hemsworth who's a person. Like, it's,
How did you
you're
know that
having
was
sex
my
with a person.
person?
Is it
How did
really?
you know?
I
No,
think
I
he's
just mean,
everyone's
yeah, like,
person, but
I mean, he's everyone's person. I mean, to me, like, when somebody's like, tell me about your most perfect man, I'm like, Chris Hemsworth. Duh.
and
That
even
and
people talk to me like about me that like I'm like a star, or like I'm just a person that has sex, like
say you're
like
a
it's
star. I think that you have a very strong online presence and following. And I think you've done and been part of a few iconic things in the community. And to me, you're a celebrity, but I mean, to me, you
yeah.
are.
See, I'm just like, I'm this weird kid from Alabama, but
Well,
like
one
even
of the
celebrities don't view themselves as celebrities. Like they're, I don't know if you ever remember watching MTV Cribs. They're like, we're people too, but I mean, they are. Anyway, everyone's a person. Like the
right.
only people
So
you'll get that are who think they're kind of are the narcissist, and like and that's its own thing. That's not celebrity status. That's
sure.
just their personality.
Are there certain people that you struggle working with in the adult entertainment industry because of stuff like that?
Like I don't know if it's a struggle, but there are people that like I view that like maybe want to film like a scene or something, that they are just like so ridiculously good looking to me in like every way that I am not sexually attracted to them. And like
Really?
it's weird to be like, you are so hot, but like I don't want to have sex with you because you're so hot. And like
Right.
and it was might come from a place of intimidation, but like I don't know, like I can't. I've turned down a lot of like really hot people just because they were too hot to have sex with.
Really? Did you tell them that was the reason though?
I've said that to like two people, and like they don't accept it, as they think that I'm just making something up, and I'm like, I don't, you don't have to believe. I was just letting you know, but
Okay, well, I have to know who's somebody that you thought was just too hot to have sex with. I want to
um,
know.
what is his name?
Because you're so hot, so I'm always like really interested to see like what do you find to be sexy?
Like if you look at my, I don't really have like a type, and that's not me trying to be, I'm inclusive, like, but I really like, one day you might see me having sex with like a 400 pound bear, the next day might be like some twink, and next day might be like 48-year-old daddy. Like I'm very sexually fluid, and I like to match energies, and it's not necessarily always like a physical thing for me.
So one of the reasons that you're iconic is because you have been in the news for having come out and said things about certain conservative politicians that you um, have been hired by. Can you talk a little bit more about how that even came about?
Yeah, that was during 2020, during the Black Lives Rally protests and the election year and pandemic. I actually went to a rally in Chicago, and kind of the big message during those was like, like go home and do something yourself that like, only you can do, or like talk to your family or talk to your friends or say something or speak up. And so I was really motivated by that. And throughout my career, you always, with other models and stuff, you hear their stories and who they've been with and who celebrities they've been with. And it like one name kept popping up over and over and over again. And so like I went home and I made a tweet, and I really didn't think anything of it because I was just kind of a nobody at the time. And the next day, like it was, I think it was like BuzzFeed, and then it became like CNN and Rolling Stone, and then like Ronan Farrow, and it snowballed in this big whole thing that like I had absolutely no experience with.
Yeah.
So then it became I was very by myself. So a lot of other people started contacting me saying, "Hey, like I was there in your shoes too." And so I went with Ronan Farrow on the story. And the purpose of me doing that, which some people have like said that I did it for like fame or like to boost my own career. The reasoning of it was I just wanted to send a message that
Yeah.
it was a very pivotal election, a very like pivotal time. That's why I never really went too much detail with it. Everyone has kind of created their own versions of the story in their mind, which I think is kind of cool because it leads to like
Yeah.
art and stuff.
It's a
Um,
legend.
yeah, and it's funny to like if you still look at their like Twitters and stuff, like it's still like the first thing someone like calls them. There was in the story with Ronan Farrow, there was me and like five other people, and the story was so well vetted that it was going to go to publication. But like legally, they couldn't release it till after the election because they didn't want any kind of election interference.
Interference. Yeah.
And so it just kind of became a thing to where I had to think: Do I want? Is this going to do something after the election, or do I want to be like an SNL character, kind of like Stormy Daniels was,
And
and
you've
just kind
become
of be
friends with
mocked?
Stormy, is that correct?
We're not. We don't like chat, but like during that time, we both kind of talked to each other for a bit because she was going through her thing with Trump, and I was going. That's one thing. Like, there's support groups if you're going through grief. Your dog died, your parent died, you have an alcohol problem. There's support groups, but like, there's no support group for like outing
This.
a powerful person. And
Right.
but yeah, it's been interesting to kind of watch. Like send that message out and to see all since then it's been kind of like R. Kelly and Diddy and these people are like coming out against powerful people that are just regular people, and I felt like maybe that was empowering for people to know that they have the ability to stand up and you can be like a nobody and like still have your voice heard. And
Well, I think it's because I follow you online. I know, like, I always saw your claims as being a political stance rather than a seek for attention or fame, because you can see that you are passionate about politics, and it really is about sending a message and everything. So what I found really interesting was I listened to one of the podcasts that you were on, and you talked quite a bit about how you were actually investigated by what branch were you investigated by?
like everybody, like my from like week one, I had someone, random attorneys calling me all the time, and I eventually had people. I was doxxed, and my address and information were put online, and people would stand outside in front of my apartment in Chicago. So I left overnight and moved to California. Like, didn't tell anybody. Just literally U-Haul and gone, and I didn't like change my address like for mail to be forwarded. I was kind of living off the radar, and like within 2 weeks I had like the FBI at my door. Every single week there would be like an attorney, like they were just wanting like more information. I think kind of get engaged because I was so tight-lipped on it. But yeah, like anytime I left my apartment I was followed by a car. So it became from like June to October or November, like I couldn't leave. I was trapped in my apartment. Like I was too afraid to leave to go get groceries. Like I just stayed inside for until all that. And then after the election, it all kind of dissipated. But
Did any of
yeah,
that ever make you regret coming forward with your story?
no, I don't have any regrets with that. I think maybe the only regret I balance with or struggle with is maybe I should have just said, "Hey, let's publish this." But in hindsight, everyone knows enough to that my message got through, even without knowing, the details, which are kind of
Yeah.
like important.
Well, I mean, they're still around. I saw like a TikTok shop ad for a shirt that was discussing Lady G. And so I was like, this is still in the pop culture, in the zeitgeist or whatever you want to call it. And I just think it's funny that it's not talked about more in the mainstream because it's so well known in like the gay communities. Like it's very odd that it's not talked about more.
I think there is a very like heavy media unspoken rule because the Young Turks kind of, I don't know if you watch them or not. They
Yeah.
were doing like a DNC thing and they were talking about him, and they were like, I know we in the media are not supposed to say this, but he is gay. We all know this. And it was, I felt like they kind of let on that there's an unspoken rule not to discuss it in the media. Maybe because there's no
Which is just
concrete evidence and that sets people up. But
yeah.
like what that was 4 years ago, and like I've never had been sued over defamation. I've never sat in court. And that's because the guy could never sit under oath and say this never happened with me or with
Right.
any of like the other six people that I know. And that's, which is kind of funny because I like, I kind of cyberbully the senator like every day. And there's like, the only way for him to kind of maybe stop it would be to acknowledge it. But, acknowledging it would be worse for
Give
him
evidence
not
to
acknowledging
power.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you surprised that that grinder collapsed or got overloaded at the Republican National Convention this year?
Oh, no, not at all. Like, I always have to
It's
kind of
so
like
weird to me.
watch. I always have to watch my political stances with like clientele because a lot of times they are like big Republicans, and saying anything
Which is
anti-Trump,
weird to me.
it can kind of like upset them. So I
Does
remember like
does
there was
that
this
ever
guy
bother you though?
who had the like best view of Trump Tower here in Chicago. Is just looked out his window as Trump, and I was like, I'm sorry about like your view, and he's like, oh no, I love it, and I'm like, okay.
I mean, does that ever bother you that there's such a large portion of people that hire you that are conservative?
I mean, like when I leave, I leave it at the door, so like I don't go home and think about it. It's just kind of fascinating. Even I saw some study that like really homophobic men, they were like put in two straight guys who like aren't homophobic, and straight guys who are homophobic were put into like two separate groups, and they were shown like gay porn, and the homophobic men were like aroused by it, and the straight men who weren't homophobic weren't aroused by it. So it shows that like there's a correlation between homophobia and like actually liking gay porn and like stuff like that. So it doesn't surprise me that some of the biggest homophobes are actually gay.
It's just, I guess for me, it just bothers me. Like when people devote so much of their time and energy to tearing down or trying to oppress a group of people that they're actually a part of, there's so many layers to that just I'm personally a very emotional activist type person, and so that's always bothered me so much because I feel like you can't spend millions of dollars trying to outlaw um like shooting animals and go on a safari every weekend. It's just weird to me. I don't know. I mean, it just I think that for me personally, I think it's really cool that, and that shows that it is a job to you, and that sex work is work, that that you're doing something that is a job, because I personally, as a person, I just couldn't. It's hard for me to separate that, even in, I mean, I'm in the corporate world, and it's very hard for me because I do work with a lot of conservative people, including my supervisor. So it's very hard for them to be like, yeah, isn't Trump great? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
I mean, with anything, like if someone has like an issue with like fat people or black people, or most people's issues stem within something inside them. So if someone's spending a lot of energy and a lot of effort disproportionately like affect gay people, that's stemming from a lot of self-hatred, and it's usually they're struggling with their own sexuality. Like fighting fire with fire in those situations aren't isn't really going to help anything. I've
Sure,
really found
sure.
that like maybe kind of peeling back a layer and maybe kind of understanding somewhat where this hatred is coming, because it's always coming from self-hatred before it becomes
Right,
hatred on
right.
someone else. And if you can maybe peel back some of those layers and maybe don't and lead them to understanding themselves without saying it, works a lot better and opens a lot more eyes than just being like, why are you a homophobe, don't like fuck you, like, you know, stuff like that. You're never going to win an argument just by, you know,
Sure.
back and forth. You have to like lead people to enlightenment and let them arrive to their own conclusions, but guide them that way.
Do you ever have women that try to hire you? And if so, have you ever gone through with something like that?
I've had There's a lot of like straight couples that want to hire me. um I don't mind it, but I'm gay, and like the women's not gonna get any attention. Like I might make it like I don't mind making out with women, but like I don't like having sex with women. And like
Sure.
it just depends on how I feel in the moment it's asked.
What are your personal thoughts on straight men that are in the realm of companionship work that um, do allow themselves to be allow themselves? I don't know if that's the right term. The ones that engage in being hired by gay men. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if they're not hurting anybody, like it's not gonna bother me. Like that's their own thing and make money. I don't. I've no
Sure,
issues with it.
absolutely. Yeah. So if people want to find you online, like follow you online, where can they find you at?
It's at that Sean Harding on X. That's the only social media platform I have.
What do someday, years and years from now, what do you want to be remembered for the most?
Um, I hope that I get remembered as bringing kind of or unlifting the veil of sex workers and showing that like we're people with like feelings, and we're not just this kind of like people placed on a pedestal that are better than you. I know there's a lot of characters in the industry that are like that, but I've spent a lot of time, trying to break down those walls and just being kind of, I call myself the black sheep of the porn community just because it's hard for me to be inauthentic. So I just hope
Yeah.
I'm remembered for that. Like, I get a
What's
lot of
what in
the
your
messages that I
opinion?
get, they're usually I don't get much from like you're hot or you're sexy, but it's kind of like, oh, your post like inspired me, and like I never viewed something that way and it made me love myself more.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that is like what I really like, and not the you're sexy.
Yeah. Well, in your opinion, what's the best way to support sex workers and lift them up, so to speak? I don't know. What's the best way to support that community?
Uh Listen, like don't assume
Okay.
that you know what's best for anybody, and that's kind of with any case of any community, like trans community. Just listen to what people are saying, and
Sure.
it's only their experiences can kind of navigate what they're going through. And you can't really say, well, I did this. Just listen to their problems
Yeah.
and kind of help come up with solutions instead of thinking the answers.
Wonderful. Well, Sean, thank you so much for your time today and for joining us. If people want to follow Sean, as he said, it's that at that Sean Harding on
Yeah,
X, right?
yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. For all of my listeners on YouTube and on Spotify, thank you for joining me for another episode. Always remember, anyone can be an icon, but it takes somebody with true heart to be a legend. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.